Well, after the ceremonial pomp of yesterday, the US President Barack Obama got down to the real business of his trip to Britain. Just a short time ago, he held talks with Prime Minister David Cameron, where, among other things, they discussed the military operation in Libya. Well, to bring us up to date, we're joined now in London by our European correspondent, Philip Williams. Phil, very interesting press conference, it's still going actually, but the opening questions were fascinating. Will the Americans, since both America and Britain agree that Gaddafi must go, commit more resources to make that happen, or will they continue to sit on the sidelines and let NATO run the show?
Yes, and there was a very specific reference in that question to attack helicopters, and it wasn't actually bounced back. It wasn't discounted, and both Barack Obama and David Cameron clearly signalled that they will stay the course on Libya, and that they want to see Gaddafi removed, and that they're in no way backing down. Now, of course, there's been a lot of criticism in recent weeks at the slow pace of that campaign, and if there is to be a stepping up of this campaign and a conclusion to it, then it appears this may be a signal that this could be the next step towards that. Here's a little of what President Barack Obama had to say on Libya.
We will continue to strongly oppose the use of violence against protesters and any efforts to silence those who yearn for freedom and dignity and basic human rights. And that's one of the reasons that we are working together in Libya, alongside with our NATO allies and partners to protect the Libyan people. And we will continue those operations until Gaddafi's attacks on civilians cease. Time is working against Gaddafi, and he must step down from power and leave Libya to the Libyan people.
Yeah, Phil, just still on that just for a moment. I mean, David Cameron asked about the attack helicopters, for example. We will look at all options. Barack Obama asked about whether the Americans would commit more resources, said, well, we don't have any secret special air resources that we can commit to this. So he was quite vague as to whether the Americans might use helicopters, but one thing he was absolutely certain on, neither of them will commit ground forces.
No, and that's been very, very consistent all along, that they've both said from the outset that won't happen. But this is a very interesting question on the attack helicopters, and it would scale up the commitment very much so. Still from the air, but much closer to the air and much more vulnerable to attack from the ground, of course, if that is the case. Now, Cameron could have easily said, no, that's not in consideration. He didn't do that. And it seems that there is something going on there and some escalation quite possible, and that did seem to be a signal towards that end.
Phil, what else is on the agenda? Because obviously they've both got forces committed to Afghanistan, and once again the President talked about some sort of deadline at 2014.
Yes, this 2014 pull-out deadline for both countries. They both want to get out of there. It's not a war either of them want to be involved with. And again, here's another strong signal. It's been done before, but this is perhaps stronger than we've seen before, that they want a political solution, and that political solution, they concede, has got to involve the Taliban. Now, not the Taliban that encourages al-Qaeda or continues to fight the coalition forces. What they're trying to do is encourage those more moderate elements of the Taliban to come across, respect the constitution of Afghanistan, and be involved in a political rather than military process. Here's what David Cameron had to say about that.
This is a vital year in Afghanistan. British and American forces are fighting side by side in Helmand, right at the heart of this operation. We've broken the momentum of the insurgency, and even in the Taliban's heartland in Kandahar and central Helmand, they are on the back foot. Now is the moment to step up our efforts to reach a political settlement. The Taliban must make a decisive split from al-Qaeda, give up violence, and join a political process that will bring lasting peace to that country.
Finally, Phil, two other very big items on the agenda. One is Syria, and if they're going to put resources into Libya, why not Syria? A big question. But also the Israel-Palestine question. It appeared that Obama seems to have a concession from David Cameron, that he pretty much agrees with the Obama formula of going back to the pre-67 borders with land swaps.
Yes, he does. Of course, that's much more easily said than enacted, and both of them conceded that this was extremely difficult. But both of them said, look, if we can solve this problem, then we can basically diffuse a lot of the recruiting ground for terrorism in many other parts of the world. In fact, a lot of the joint preamble that they both delivered was aimed at this whole thing of terrorism and still continuing that fight, but also that they really want to convey the message, we are winning this. This isn't a lost cause. There is cause to be optimistic about our battles against various terrorist organisations. And in that, they're even quite optimistic in a sense, saying Pakistan, we have to support Pakistan, not turn our back on Pakistan. It's quite an important message they were sending to the Pakistanis themselves, that they wanted to include them in solutions in the battles against Pakistan, and recognising that they had actually suffered extremely high casualties in the fight against Pakistan. In fact, David Cameron said no country has suffered more at the hands of terrorists than Pakistan. So that was a message the Pakistanis will want to hear, particularly after the bruising they've received over the raids by the Americans 3 weeks ago.
And finally, on Syria, nothing concrete, evidently, more like a sort of vague resolution to try and make sure that more civilians are not killed.
Yes, vague, a very different approach to Libya. Certainly no sense that they would commit militarily to that country. In fact, far from it. Simply saying, yes, we support the EU's efforts at sanctions, mild actions by comparison, and a call for them to behave better. But very different treatment. Both of them did say, we take a very pragmatic attitude to how these things are handled, and that all countries require different reactions. But yes, if the Syrian opposition figures were hoping for something more concrete, they certainly didn't get it today.
Phil Williams, thanks very much. We'll see you again soon.